This is not legal advice. I am not an attorney, but I get DMs asking me, Micah, what do I do? Because they are being impacted right now through eminent domain. And there are several things that I wish I would have known from the beginning. However, you don't know until you know. I didn't even know what eminent domain meant. I had no idea anything about eminent domain. I didn't know that eminent domain was in our Constitution. It's the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. I did not know that. So everything that I'm going to be referencing is Tennessee law because that is where my fight is right now. So check with your state because it varies from state to state. So I hope that you find this helpful. Again, this is not legal advice. This is just things that I have learned along the way. Hope this helps. Let's read it together. I'm going to read what's highlighted. This is the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. Nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Knowledge is power. Knowing your rights is always going to be your first defense. This is an eminent domain guide, and this is actually directly from our old attorney's website. So let's read some of this together. I'm not going to read a whole thing for the sake of time, but in the state of Tennessee, the power of eminent domain is granted to government entities such as the Tennessee Department of Transportation, better known as TDOT, allowing them to acquire private property for public use. The power is regulated by both state and federal law, is subject to certain limitations and procedures. What is the eminent domain process in Tennessee? Again, we're talking about Tennessee law because this is where my fight's at. The eminent domain process begins with the government entity that wants to acquire the property, typically a local or state government agency. The government must first determine that the property is necessary for a public use, building a highway, constructing a public school, creating a public park, those type of things. Once the determination is made, the government must provide the property owner with a notice of intent to acquire the property. Then it goes on to say, the process of that, the next steps. And then let's go down to the second paragraph, the last wording of that. Once the fair market value has been determined, the government will pay the property owner that amount in exchange for the property. So, step one of the eminent domain process, the very first step, you should receive a letter of intent that they want to acquire your property. That's step one. That is part of the due process. So I hope that is informative of anybody that's facing eminent domain. Again, this is Tennessee law. I'm not a lawyer. This is just what I've learned along the way. Number one, a letter of intent. It's called due process. I'll give you some steps now. Number one, if you have received a letter of intent, the first thing you want to do is you want to contact a constitutional attorney or an eminent domain attorney. That's obviously step number one. Number two, know your rights. Know your rights. Go get the Constitution and know your rights. Number three, document every single detail. I mean, if you think it doesn't matter, that's the thing that's going to matter. Every single text you want documented, every single phone call. If your state, check with your state if you're allowed to record phone conversations, if you're allowed. On your emails, this is critical. Every email that you send to your attorney, to anybody involved in this eminent domain case, make sure at the end of every single email that you state, this does not equal my signature. This is not legal binding. this is not a legal binding agreement. Make sure that you are writing that at the end of every single email. I promise you it matters. You don't know until you know. Make sure you are doing those things. And then lastly, make sure you're journaling or writing, having a running dialogue of what every day looks like, who you talk to, the times. I have the past 2.5 years. I can tell you who I talk to, exactly the time that I talk to this person. It matters, because as your journey progresses, as you go and you move in this fight, it's exhausting, and you're not going to be able to remember every detail, but you have it logged. So those are just basic things that, thank God, I took some of those steps when I didn't even realize what I was doing, but thank God I had enough sense to do some of those steps. So I hope that you have found this helpful. Again, I am not an attorney.